the man who makes Sir David Attenborough's documentaries absolutely sing. He's Australian. He is the person that holds the camera and points it in the right direction. And his name is Jim Frazier. Jim, good afternoon.
G'day, Tom. How are you?
Good, thank you. Now, whereabouts are you from in Australia?
I'm up on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, near Taree.
Lovely part of the world.
It is.
And how did you get involved with Sir David Attenborough?
It's a great story, and you're not going to believe it when I tell you. I made a film early in the 70s all about spiders with Denzi Klein. And it won a lot of awards, and it was sent to the BBC. And they were so knocked out with it that they got us over there for a big release. And after the release, they said, you know, we got this big series starting called Life on Earth, and it's going to be headed up by David Attenborough. And I said, who the hell's David Attenborough? He wasn't known in the 70s here. But the BBC literally, for his series, sent us all over the world. And Sumatra was another trip I liked. I had to go up there and do the biggest flower in the world. And that was a challenge because you go to a remote place where there's no electricity, and how the hell do you do time-lapse of this biggest flower opening that takes 3 days to open?
I mean, do you just take a massive battery pack in with you?
Well, I took a very specially built pack for that job. Had a good electronics mate work on it with me. And I decided I was going to shoot two camera shoot, because I figured that if anything went wrong, I at least have a second camera backup of it. And you know what? It did go wrong. Halfway through the shot, one of the lights blew, and the BBC were able to cut to the second camera seamlessly, and you didn't notice the difference.
Well, Murphy's Law will always come into operation when you're doing something like that.
No.
David Attenborough comes across as being extraordinarily competent with what he does, of course, but very passionate about it too. I mean, does that passion just sort of pervade everything he's doing?
It's a necessary ingredient, and it's necessary for me and all the cameramen who work on it. You have to be tuned in, and you first and foremost have to have dedication and passion in order to do what you do.
A lot is spoken about these days about environmental retreat, environmental devastation. I'm sure you've been back and forth to places. Have you noticed, you know, less wildlife, less forest, less whatever? Have you noticed the effect of mankind, of pollution on the natural environment?
Absolutely, and I intend to do something about it.
Okay.
And I don't want to say too much about it on this program, but I believe the world's at a tipping point at the moment. And I've been working on a program for about 10 years, and it will all come out in the next month or so.
All right, we'll look forward to hearing about that. Do you find yourself getting inspired or getting rather downcast when you see the environment being degraded in the manner you describe?
Well, it's certainly disturbing, but I believe that one has to be optimistic. If you adopt a doomsday attitude, we will not survive. But if you are optimistic that change can be made, I believe we can all survive.
If you'd like to talk to Jim Frazier, he will take your calls at 96900 693 13 13 32. You mentioned before, Jim, that you prefer the jungles, the hotter climes. You don't like going to the polar extremes of the Earth. What about ocean and water photography? Does that thrill you, or do you hate it?
I've done it, but very little. I've always come to the conclusion that cameras and water don't mix very well. I've seen a few disasters, and I would prefer to be out of the water than in it. While I love swimming and snorkeling and all that sort of stuff, I'm not really keen to take cameras under there, and there are better guys around than me to do it.
Calls for Jim Frazier in a moment. He is the man, the cinematographer behind Sir David Attenborough and the many, many nature documentaries that he's produced. And again, the Herald Sun, I think, is giving one away for free tomorrow, and it's called the Essential Collection. There'll be 14 DVDs to collect over 14 days commencing this weekend.